Welcome back. Dr. Asuluka, that question about when national vision clashes with personal vision, is that what has been the problem with Nigeria also? Is that why we're not looking at this restructuring thing?
Yeah, there's nothing bad with a national vision, but you don't impose a vision without a consensus. I've had people argue that by 1960, we had our founding fathers define the kind of federation they wanted. By 63, it was made a little more elastic. By 66, the military took over, and from then, they were giving us the federal structure they think was best for Nigeria. And you call it the mechanistic approach to federalism. And some lawyers would even go down to what we call the Warian approach by looking at the structures of the Constitution and begin to argue what could be done and what may not be done. But like we say, if you're an architect, I think it's Professor Akitoye who used that analogy, and I think it's apt. Before you build any structure, you have to do a soil test, and you design to fit the space you have. So if you have a national vision, there could be lofty national vision, but there also has to be a concerted effort towards a consensus, because you don't tell me this is the best. And the beauty of democracy is the freedom to have different views, which is why, like our own position, by 1994-95, when you had the Constitutional Conference, the Southeast and other Igbo-speaking area, we had what we call Moki Igbo. In order to drive a vision, our own idea, our own perspective as to how Nigeria would be best run, it did not mean that we had an exclusive preserve of knowledge, but we started aggregating views you could call the Southeast view. You could have the South-South view. You have the North-Central, North-West, North-East, and Southwest views. The beauty of it is when they begin to talk, they begin to bargain, and they begin to narrow position. And whatever comes out of it could become the vision of the nation, and not a vision mechanistically designed. And when you talk about the structure, in terms of federalism, again, why people complain most of the times, they feel that it is not our act. And you have a constitution that started with the people, and some people find offense in that. I don't need to take to task my friend and classmate, Professor Egosa, who would argue that most of these phases were determined by the yearning of the people. True. But now that we have a democracy, it could be nice for people to express how these things could be done in order to add to more effectiveness and efficiency of governance. Because when you talk about restructuring in Nigeria today, there are 5 salient points that have remained problematic. You are talking about the federating unit. How do you define federating unit? Some people will say Nigeria, well, our own is not an aggregative federating process. That is what you call maybe disaggregative federating process. In that sense, the states cannot query the center because the center gave birth to the state. There's an argument there. But for how long would you now insist that these federating units, which to some people are poorly defined in terms of functionality, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of governance, in terms of, you have a structure of 36 states. And like some people argue, there is even better governance at the federal level than at the state level because there is a seeming balance. But in the states, what do? Which is why I suspect we argue for devolution. But devolution on its own, given 36 states, I don't know how it's going to work with this kind of, you don't pay attention to the economics of federalism. The second point that has always remained controversial is revenue generation and revenue sharing. Until there is a resolution of this kind of agitation will come from time to time. You also have the issue of police, armed forces. federal character, citizenship right, judiciary. These are some of the contentious issues in federalism as in Nigeria. I agree with you that when we have a national vision to build a Nigerian state where every component unit will flow into, that is our desired goal. But if you are in strategy, you must also do what we call situation analysis. Where do you stand and where do you want to go? And how do you proceed? Until you get to that point, you don't assume that there is a maturity that you can no longer tinker with this. Even in America, the 13 colonies that came together to form USA, they made it a little bit, a small document in order to allow for organic nature of man, let it grow and address certain other issues. So why people tend to be offended with the Nigerian system is because everybody is angry. East is angry, South is angry, Northwest, Northeast, everybody. How can you have a system where everybody is angry? It means that something has to be done to this system. So I say in 1995, there was a constitutional conference. We prepared Mpokibo, where people like from Aki Ikenga, Zumuna, Abuja Forum came together, and you have prominent players like the now Minister of Labor, Dr. Chris Ngige, who was my predecessor in office as the president of Aki Ikenga. You have people like Professor A.B.C. Wosu. You have people like Chief Agunze. We all played a prominent role. We were able to at least harmonize the different views that you can now call the kind of consensus. And we thought at the federal level, if you achieve the same, you can now have a national consensus to the national question. But when people begin to talk and accuse each other, it's the lazy man's way of saying, you are the cause of my lack of development,